There's one more week of negotiations scheduled at the Paris summit, where they're working to create new global emissions guidelines to replace the Kyoto Protocol. Today, 700 mayors discussed local solutions to climate change, but one Canadian group says it's not being heard and it's growing frustrated from a lack of progress in Paris. Now Ayed has that.
We want to be heard. We want to be heard.
They hide their faces deliberately. It's their words they want heard.
Youth want to be heard, not just seen.
The Canadian Youth Delegation comes to the UN conference every year, encouraged by a new Canadian government. This year, they asked to meet the Prime Minister and Environment Minister.
Both of them didn't have time for us. They did want to take pictures with us, however, and post selfies, which is what we're here protesting today, to recognize that we have real demands and we're not just faces of youth.
For the record, their demands of the Canadian government include committing Canada to zero emissions by 2050, ending subsidies for the fossil fuel industry, and shutting down what they call the tar sands. The Environment Minister's office says they did cancel a meeting because of a conflict, but will reschedule when she returns next week.
We're so excited.
Still, these Canadian youth were named to the official Canadian delegation, but have seen little of the negotiators until today.
It's been very confusing to be told one thing and then seeing another.
Thousands of youth have come from around the world to be part of this conference, some as young as 15. They are, after all, directly impacted, and for much longer.
We'll do our children and our grandchildren.
That the next generation will be better off.
To our children and grandchildren.
As repeatedly pointed out by world leaders at the start of the conference.
But now it's all up to the negotiators, and it's all happening in there. Canadian officials who are inside tell us that the progress has been slower than they'd like, and in fact, they may be talking through the night.
Holding them up, options that just won't be narrowed down. Issues like the funding developing nations demand. Ministers return to take over next week.
Ministers need something they can actually negotiate, and negotiators can't give them 36 pages of bracketed text.
I would once again express my deep disappointment that Christiana Figueres is not in this room.
Frustrating for those who can only look in, like this young Canadian.
I've seen young people here who are better informed than negotiators themselves, because we have that freedom and that passion and that drive to just go in and get passionate. So I want to see that represented more.
A so-called die-in to highlight the stakes here. Climate change is a fact of their life. Protesting is one thing, but they'd much rather be talking. Nala Ayed, CBC News, Le Bourget, France.